Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is One Punch Man, Season 2, Episode 21, The Troubles of the Strongest. Episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happened in the episode. So, the episode begins where the last one left off, with Saitama arriving to Suryu's call for a hero, and he faces Bakuzen, who is gloating because, well, at first he actually gets a little bit afraid because he remembers being beaten by One Punch because he was like Saitama's second fight in the tournament and was defeated in One Punch. But then he remembers he's a monster now. So he then decides to start attacking Saitama, who at first allows himself to get hit because he's thinking about who this person is who clearly knows him and he can't remember. And then in the end, he ends up defeating him after deciding that he just can't remember. Suryu then reminds him who it was, and he's like, oh, well, I can't remember everyone I've defeated with one punch. You know, it all just blends together. Then Suryu lets him know about Gotetsu, who he then decides to go out and find. And Suryu at first tries to stop him because, you know, Gotetsu is so much stronger and he doesn't want Saitama's life. He now owes Saitama his life. Like, Saitama saved his life, so he wants Saitama not to die. Saitama basically leaves anyways, and then Gotetsu's head's thrown back into the arena, and he comes back to Suryu because he forgot to ask him to keep his identity a secret as far as him competing in the martial arts tournament. And Suryu, of course, agrees, then asks if he thinks he could be a hero too, because, you know, now he understands the importance of heroes, and then asks to be Saitama's disciple, and Saitama says absolutely not, because he obviously already has one that he didn't really want in the first place, so he doesn't really need a second. And then Saitama leaves. When he gets outside, everything's quiet, and he's a bit upset at himself for having not realized all the chaos was going on and having missed it. And he runs into King, who's also outside now that it's quiet. And he and King have a discussion about how he's feels like he's too strong, like he's reached the limit of his growth, that he's able to defeat everything with one punch, and therefore he's feeling bored and unchallenged. King then, you know, gives advice, comes up with suggestions on maybe how to challenge himself outside of being a hero, like example, maybe try ballroom dancing, make some friends, something he hasn't done before, might not be as good at, um, strengthen his attitude and his mental side of things if he's already reached the physical peak, you know, maybe try to reach the mental peak to be the ultimate hero. You know, he offers to beat Saitama at a video game anytime he wants to lose, even says he'll just play with one finger. Garo, we find out, was actually defeated by Watchdog Man, and he sees King, so he runs to try to defeat him, and Saitama kicks him through a wall. Meanwhile, he's talking to King about how Garo, the human monster, has got him interested, and he thinks that he might be strong, not realizing he's talking about the person he just kicked through a wall. And King hopes that he will be a challenge for him, but obviously that's not going to happen. Meanwhile, we see Speed-o-Sound Sonic again, which we haven't seen him in forever, so very happy about that. He's my favorite villain-ish character that recurs in the show. And he's in the forest practicing to kill Saitama by throwing kunai at a photo of Saitama that he's pinned to a tree, when two other ninja who have become monsters basically corner him and say, hey, join our monster association with us. We're going to take over this puny planet. It's going to be great. Here's a monster cell. And Sonic realizes that no matter how hard he trains, he's probably not going to be able to defeat Saitama as a human. So he takes the monster cell, and I'm laughing because I'm remembering the end. Anyways, we then go to our we then see like Sonic sitting around contemplating and ultimately deciding he wants to eat the monster cell, but he doesn't feel comfortable eating it raw, so he cooks it and then he eats it off a plate. And I don't know if it worked or not. I can't remember if he becomes a monster. I don't want him to, but I can't remember if he does. And there is text on screen after he eats it from the plate that says after that he got the runs. So whether he becomes a monster or whether he made it ineffective by cooking it, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But that happened, and obviously, as I'm laughing while recounting it, it was funny. And then And then the very final scene of the episode, of course, is the Hero Association talking about the Monster Association and the things they learned through this raid. And then at the very, very end, last scene, a member of the Hero Association comes in and two little worms come out of his head, and he starts saying that he has a message from the Monster Association, and that's our cliffhanger. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, it is now time to rank the episode. We're ranking on our mostly objective ranking, followed by our personal ranking. So let's start with our mostly objective rank values, and I highlighted those I felt applied to the episode. So first we of course have our little bit part characters, and the when Saitama leaves the martial arts tournament grounds after killing Gotetsu, he realizes that it's quiet out, so then he asks a hero that's laying on the ground, Water Gun, what's happened, and apparently all the monsters pulled out like 30 minutes ago. And then we have our monsters that were introduced. We have Hellfire Flame and Gale Wind, who are ninjas, like Sonic, who had decided to become part of the Monster Association and became monsters, and they are the ones who offer Sonic the Monster Cell and opportunity to enter the Monster Association, which he does take the Monster Cell, but he may have made it ineffective by cooking it. We don't know yet. Anywho, they were there. And then the other one listed online as being a new monster was Destrochlor Ridium, and I think that's the one that's giving the message, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, but I think that's who's giving the message. And anyways, that's 1 point each. That's 2 points. Then we have our multi-season supporting character development, which is of course that Sonic was recruited to become a monster and given the cell, but then he cooked it because, you know, I don't want to catch anything from a monster cell. Oh my gosh. This is why Sonic is my favorite villainesque character. He felt the need. Like, it's a cell that's meant to turn you into a monster, and he's worried about eating it raw. Like, anywho, I adore Sonic. I think he's amazing. Great character. And that's worth 3 points in my opinion. So that gives us, well, not in my opinion, that's the level, that's what it's given on the chart. Anyways, that brings us up to 5, and that makes this episode a 5 out of 10. And so our season ranking so far in our mostly objective ranking, we have the human monster, the hunt begins, the metal bat, return of the hero, the martial arts tournament, the S-class heroes, the monster uprising. This episode comes in 8th, the troubles of the strongest, followed by the resistance of the strong in last place so far. Which then brings us to the personal ranking. And spoilers, my favorite part of the episode was the fact that Sonic got recruited to become a monster, and this pulsating monster cell, he's afraid of what, bacteria or catching something from something that is literally meant to turn him into a monster and decides that he has to cook it before he can eat it. And then according to the screen at the end, written there says he had the runs after, so I don't know if it worked, but either way, eating it cooked seems to have made it volatile in the stomach. I think that's amazing. And then of course there was also Saitama and his conversation with King, where he seemed very close-minded. You know, for all he says he's so bored and so tired of being a hero and feeling unchallenged, as soon as he's like suggested, we'll find a challenge elsewhere, or, you know, challenge your mind, he's like, no, 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 I'm just gonna be bored forever, because, you know, he doesn't actually want to improve. Like, he's basically naysaying every suggestion on how he might improve or get that challenge back. So that's what happened there. And then, of course, Suryu kind of him wanting to be his disciple, and Saitama this time being very firm, nope, not taken anymore. And then overall, there was a shining comedic moment, but otherwise it was pretty much just talking. Even the fight with Gotetsu happened off screen. And I do find it funny when, you know, Saitama takes a bunch of hits and the opponent thinks they're winning because he's so lost in thought that he doesn't even think to like defend himself, but they do like no damage. So he's just kind of like bopping around. That's also funny. So overall, like I liked the episode's entertainment value, but ultimately I didn't feel like a lot happened and most of it was taken up with Sonic, but he's not really the main character. Oh my God, I love that part. I just can't get over it. And then Saitama basically having a heart-to-heart with King that ultimately went nowhere because he was a bit closed-minded to King's advice. So, I decided to give it a 4. And that's because it had one shining moment, but the rest was kind of blah. And that brings our ranking list to, in first, the S-Class Heroes, The Hunt Begins, The Human Monster, Return of the Hero, The Resistance of the Strong, The Monster Uprising, the Martial Arts Tournament. This episode also is an 8th, The Troubles of the Strongest, followed by The Metal Bat in 9th. And that now brings us to our series ranking so far. And on our mostly objective ranking, Season 1 ended with 88.33%, and Season 2 so far has 68 points out of 120. Meanwhile, on the personal ranking side, Season 1 ended with a score of 76.67, and Season 2 so far has 59 out of 120. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Punch Man Season 2, Episode 21, The Troubles of the Strongest. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.